Developments in the tropics, and we talk to experts today about the heat and heat stress, and also update you on what's happening with that potential tropical cyclone.
WBRC Fox 6 News First Alert Weather Extra starts now.
And we keep rolling right here on Weather Extra. Chief Meteorologist Wes Wyatt, and so glad to have you with us here. You know, we're watching that system in the tropics, and the big question, will we see any wet weather? We've actually had some tropical downpours, and watch it this evening. A lot of times when these tropical systems move in, I had so many weather photos last night, very colorful. I like to call it cotton candy sky, but this evening at sunset time should have some lovely views out there. Really sets off those colors there in the evening sky. But as we go to the graphics, want to take you first to look out the window. Our first alert sky vision. A lot of clouds at the moment. West Alabama has been getting the rainfall. Tuscaloosa at 80 degrees. We've actually had some 70s there across West Alabama. Birmingham at 90, and you can see Jasper at 82, but a big drop off. You know, further west you go with all that rain that we've had. And kind of interesting, we go to I want to show you this camera view coming in from Centerville, and one thing I was noticing looking to the south of that camera, you can see some of those cumulus towers. You see that really cool view there looking to the south. We've already had some rain that's moved through, but looks like we might have some more areas of rain developing. That's where all that air is rising, all that warm, humid air, and you get those showers and storms that develop. But looking at the radar, it's actually a little bit quieter compared to what we saw earlier this evening. Some of the data has been suggesting that we might still get a couple of pop-ups in here. Again, it's still quite hot, still very steamy and toasty back to the east, and there's still a chance that that might fire off one of these storms. Notice even south of Alexander City, not far from Auburn there, a little pop-up, and all this is actually moving east to west, and that's something, you know, you see a lot when you have that broad tropical-like circulation across the region, but all of this is moving east to west. So you check the weather app and you say, hey, there's a lot of rain back to the west. I know most of this wet weather typically moves our way from the west. This is actually moving in the opposite direction, unfortunately, so plan on watering the further east you go. And right now, some rain around Tuscaloosa. Still, it's been off and on throughout the afternoon, and still Pickens County, and there's a nice little downpour. Need to watch this one right around Forkland. You see that could be some lightning with this as that moves north. So folks around Utah, that stretch from Utah to Bolaji, just stay weather alert for the threat of lightning as that storm tracks to the north. But all that's wrapping in all that tropical moisture. We're just right there on the edge of some of that deeper tropical moisture associated with that broad area of low pressure. But what's going to happen here is we expect this to become better defined, better developed over the next couple days. The first advisory of the season issued by the National Hurricane Center today, and this is a fairly new product. It's for potential tropical cyclones. Cyclone's just another name for low pressure, and again we expect this to grow into a tropical type low, and there's a chance this may become a depression or tropical storm. But where is it going? We see this so many times early hurricane season, and hopefully the track stays this way, but you can see it stays opposite direction from us. I mean, we don't want a hurricane or anything like that, but and certainly I know for folks here in South Texas, northern Mexico, there's going to be a lot of rain with this. Some of the data, I want to show you some of the projections. It looks like a landfall by Wednesday and into Thursday as possibly Tropical Storm Alberto, first name on the list this year. But look at some of these rainfall projections and some dangerous stuff here from San Antonio back into South Texas. Look at that, 7 inches of rain estimated. We wish we could just kind of spread that out, you know, a little rain for everybody, not too much, but unfortunately that's going to be the case there for those areas receiving some very, very heavy rainfall. Okay, you have a beach trip planned. How will this impact the coast over the next few days? Well, obviously a rough surf. This is the rip current forecast for Gulf Shores, Destin, Panama City in the high category over the next few days, but should start to see some improvements. Notice Gulf Shores still seeing that purple flag there as well for marine life. As we look at the rain chances, Wednesday, Thursday, 40-50% chance for rain. Highs around 90 for Saturday and Sunday with scattered storms, but we're not seeing a total washout here, just really choppy waters and a better chance for some of those scattered storms there along coastal areas until that system makes that turn towards the southwest direction. So just a quick update there. If you have our First Alert weather app, you are traveling. We have Juneteenth coming up, the big holiday this week, and I know a lot of folks planning some trips back to the coast. Just keep that in mind there. Those rain chances around 30 to 40%. Got a lot going on this week. We had the Major League Baseball game happening in Birmingham. We're going to check in on that forecast as well coming up right here on Weather Extra. And how about a live look of snow. I promise you this is live. This is at Yellowstone, and you're looking at Old Faithful there and snow falling in Montana. And you know, it's not totally unusual. Glacier Park, actually, it's funny, I had a Facebook memory that popped up, and this time last year some of these same areas, they were dealing with some snowy weather happening there, but this is taking place across parts of Montana. Some areas in the highest terrain expecting up to 14 inches of snow tonight and tomorrow, over a half foot of snow, and it's going to be a heavy wet snow. They've actually issued winter storm warnings across those areas, parts of Idaho into parts of Montana, and with it being such a heavy wet snow, there's a big concern about power outages in those areas as well. But we've got that happening on one side of the country, and then it's the complete opposite when you go to the other side of the country. We have the first significant heat wave. Of course, we had our taste of it over the weekend, but this is going to make some big impacts there across parts of New England and back into the Ohio Valley. Tens of millions of people from the Ohio Valley to the northeast are expecting to experience temperatures that could top 95 degrees. Of course, the heat index topping 100, but it could break records in those areas. But very dangerous conditions, and the National Weather Service, they've already issued several heat advisories. I was noticing some excessive heat warnings in parts of Michigan and stretching into western Pennsylvania today from Pittsburgh north to Lake Erie. But some very, very steamy conditions and some severe weather on the outskirts of some of that significant heat that's going to be happening across parts of the Midwest. But high temperatures are expected to really soar.
Temperatures are going to be peaking to record values this week from the Ohio Valley to the Northeast. And this is going to be the worst from Monday to Thursday, Mid-Atlantic and into the New England. Highs will be capped closer to the mid to upper 90s, which is nothing to sneeze at, even, you know, in the middle of summer, let alone this early in the summer.
And the CDC, of course, recommends 1 cup of water every 15 to 20 minutes when working or playing outside. And this comes as these conditions, as well as thunderstorms, can worsen asthma symptoms. In today's Health Minute, Mandy Gaither has more on the impact severe weather can have on asthma sufferers and how to take the proper precautions this summer.
Spring and fall get a lot of flack for worsening symptoms of asthma, but summer causes concerns too, especially with stormy weather.
The humidity and wind associated with the thunderstorms break those pollens into very, very small particles that can be aerosolized very easily.
Dr. Laurie Manka with National Jewish Health says research shows asthma sufferers are at increased risk of needing to go to the emergency room during severe weather, but these patients can protect themselves.
One, I think if somebody has asthma, trying to really do some reflection about what seems to be the triggers. Is it driven by allergy? Do you have associated allergic rhinitis or inflammation of the sinuses related to allergy?
If allergies trigger asthma, reduce exposure by staying indoors in times of high pollen. Take allergy or asthma medicine as prescribed. Avoid touching your eyes. Shower and change clothes after being outdoors to remove pollen, and keep windows closed. Manka says to also frequently check forecasts.
Knowing where to find pollen counts, air quality index reports in your area to see what it's like outside, you know, before you go outside.
Manka says to go over best treatment options with your doctor and formulate a plan on what to do if symptoms increase. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And back on the topic of heat, we actually have an expert in-house right now. We're going to talk a bit more about heat illness and ways to know the symptoms, plus radar updates and more on the tropics as we continue right here in just 15 seconds. All right, and welcome back in. And we have a guest joining us now for Weather Extra from North Star EMT, Edgar Calloway. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for being with us here. And it's that time of year, right?
It's hot.
It's hot.
It's hot.
We've already had our first alert weather day for heat this past weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and now we're seeing what's happening in other parts of the country. And I never will forget, you remember the big heat wave that happened in Chicago several years
Right.
ago? And,
Yeah.
you know, some of these areas just not acclimated to it like we are.
That 100%. You know, they say it takes about 2 weeks to acclimate to any environment, particularly heat and cold. And we kind of got this last one in about 2 days. So
Yeah.
most people have not been outside at this point long enough in the summer for their body to be acclimated.
Well, I often say I have my wife's from Pittsburgh, and often talks about the cold winters, and
Right.
and you know, when you talk about how cold it gets around here in the wintertime, that's the thing. One day it's 60 to 65 degrees, and the next day it's like 25 degrees.
Correct, yeah.
But listen, one of the important things I want to talk to you about today, and I tell folks all the time, out of all the weather hazards, heat is the #1 weather-related killer. It's not hurricanes, it's not tornadoes, it's the heat. And ways to recognize those symptoms. What are some things we need to look for out here working in this hot
Right.
weather?
So you kind of have three deals. You kind of have heat exhaustion. That's exhaustion, or being tired, or you know, you get weak. Heat cramps. That's when your muscles cramp from heat and loss of fluid. That's kind of the two ways your body says, "Hey, hold up. You got to stop what you're doing." Exhaustion, heat cramps. If you continue to progress under a situation, you know, kind of when the ambient temperature is above body temp, so 99, and you add humidity, which prevents sweat from evaporating, now your body can't get rid of that heat. And that's where you really get into problems is, you know, these 99, 100, 102 degree days with 80% humidity. That's, our body is not capable of expelling, getting rid of the heat.
Well, there's so much truth when we say the heat can sneak up on you. I've spent so many days, you know, back in college helping my dad's a contractor.
Right.
We worked outside in this heat all the time. And I think still today, parts of our area, some of the hottest places in the South.
Oh, absolutely. If you play football in Alabama in August, there's nothing else anybody can do to you. That's about as hard as it gets. But, you know, you're up to 80 degrees and all of a sudden you run into some 90s. Even people who work in it every day have not maybe acclimated this early in the summer.
Just don't push it, right?
Don't push it. If you get hot, sit down, quit, get out of the heat. If you can possibly get out of it, cool off. Obviously, common sense, drink water, you know, electrolyte containing solutions, and get out of the heat.
Well, I know for a lot of us, you know, you mentioned becoming acclimated. Some of us, you know, we may work in this every day. We may be out in this hot weather. And are there just some misconceptions, some things that we just need to really make front and center when we're out here this time of year?
So common sense tells you that we all have air conditioning and we all live inside.
Yeah.
So we're really, unless you work outside all the time, you're really not acclimated. Even young people now sit inside, play video games, do those kind of things, and then they get out and next thing you know, their body temp gets really high. They pass out. It can really get bad. Even these athletes, you know, you kind of have to, even if you're looking at football and summer athletics, you have to pay real close attention to the heat. So heat is critical. Stay hydrated. Stay cool as you possibly can. If you're going to be out in it for a length of time, try to acclimate yourself beforehand.
Well, what can we do? I mean, if I know you guys, obviously, you know, we're going to call for emergency
Right.
assistance if we have an emergency. But what are some things we can do if we notice a friend or loved one is suffering from a heat-related emergency?
So always think about, you know, hey, call 911 if you even have any question. If you notice that they're having problems, if they get weak, if they get confused, if they pass out, get them out of the heat, cool them as quickly as possible. And I'm talking about pour water on them. Cool them, get as many clothes off as you can, pour water on them. Drink if they're conscious and can drink. If it gets to a point where they become unconscious and you know they're hot and they've been out in the heat, really probably the one thing that is 100% effective is to put them in an ice water bath until you kind of get their temperature down where they'll wake up and shiver. and it's that the Marines use it. That's just common sense approach.
Well, hey, common sense, it never hurts to have reminders, right?
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
well, listen, we certainly appreciate you spending some time with us today, and we're certainly going to talk to you again about this as we continue into even some hotter days here for this summer
It looks
season.
like, I was sitting there watching you do the weather, you haven't predicted any 80s and 70s, and I don't know you need to go work on that.
Well, listen, I have a box of requests over there. Trust me, I've had so many emails and so many messages on Facebook about when are we going to see some rain around here, but we are tracking some wet weather right now. We're going to have that coming up here next, and we're going to check in with meteorologist Matt Daniel, but thank you again as we continue right here on Weather Extra. Well, time for a radar check here on Weather Extra, and still tracking some scattered areas of rain over West Alabama. Still not seeing any development here around the Birmingham area or Shelby County. I still think, though, we have a few hours here as we still have these hotter conditions. We still could see a pop-up or two. I was noticing closer to Montgomery, just north of Auburn. See this area here where we have some scattered storms. Also moving, as you can see there, east to west. Some of this may develop and impact parts of Coosa, Chilton County. We'll see what happens here over the next few radar scans as this continues moving to the west. But it's that time of day, you know, you get these areas where we see more favorable development. But we have had some locations here recently where we had quite a bit of rain, had some scattered storms over the weekend and into the start of the week. And meteorologist Matt Daniel checks in right now with an update on where we stand with those rainfall totals.
Well, we had a couple of showers and storms over the weekend, but they were more isolated in nature than widespread. So we could definitely use some rain across central Alabama. Here's how much rain we've seen so far this month. And in Birmingham, almost 1.5 inches, but on average for the entire month of June, we'll pick up over 4 3/4. So definitely could use more rain. That would be very helpful for our lawn and for our gardens. Tuscaloosa over 1.5 inches. Some spots though probably saw even more than that. Just depends on where you're at. This is just the official reading at the airport. Normally pick up almost 4.5 inches of rainfall. In Anniston, not too bad, a little over almost 2.4, and on average about 4.37. So could use some more rain. Unfortunately, this week's looking pretty dry. And just to give you an idea on the rainfall totals for the year versus average, we're doing pretty well in Tuscaloosa. We did have a surplus last week. It's now dropping a bit because it's been relatively dry. In Birmingham, we actually have a deficit in the rainfall department for the year. So far, we have picked up over 24 inches of rain, but normally during this time of the year, we should have over 28 inches. So almost 4-inch deficit for Birmingham. And in Anniston, we've picked up almost 26 inches of rain, and normally we'll pick up 26.35. So we're seeing just a little bit of a deficit there in Anniston. The drought monitor right now, not too bad. We'll zoom in. You can see it's abnormally dry in parts of Atlanta, far eastern portions of the state, and then as you go into Lamar, Pickens, and Fayette County. But overall, we're doing all right. But if we stay dry all week, which is what we're looking at, we'll likely start to see some abnormally dry conditions develop. And you can see the rainfall potential over the next 5 days. Most of it's really today and in West Alabama, so not a lot of rain to deal with. But of course, we'll continue to monitor that. You can monitor our forecast and rainfall potential through the WBRC First Alert weather app.
Matt, we've been watching the radar and also watching the tropics, and the first advisory of this 2024 Hurricane Center issued, a hurricane season issued by the National Hurricane Center today across the southwest Gulf of Mexico, a potential tropical system here. Typically we see this when there's a high likelihood of development, and there's a good chance that this is going to be moving into northern Mexico, southern Texas, a possible tropical storm Alberto. That's the first name on the list this season, but we've been catching some of that tropical moisture to the north. I think this stays well south and will not have an impact on the minor league games happening out at Rickwood Field, and also the major league game happening on Thursday, or Wednesday into Thursday there. Looks like we're going to be dealing with also some dry conditions coming up. So that's what the forecast is shaping up like, a little bit drier next couple of days, and the wet weather is shifting further west. Notice some showers still showing up around Tuscaloosa, but still very, very dry for a good part of the area. Central and eastern areas just hot. The temperatures, it's incredible to see how the rain cooled things off back to the west. At one point it was like 74 in 77 in Tuscaloosa and in the 90s in Birmingham. But model data, some of the guidance is still saying, hey, there's a chance that we might see a few pop-ups out there for this evening. There's a look at midnight. You can see Tuscaloosa to Centerville, tracking south and north across the area, but more of an easterly flow is taking over the next couple days, and that just means drier conditions for us. I think tomorrow in the morning, dry weather. If you have big plans, not seeing as much rain tomorrow. Look at that. There's 11 o'clock dry through midday. Temperatures, it's still hot, not as brutal as the past few days. I know we're coming off of that blistering heat, and it's kind of breezy out there today. And you know, you couple the wind with the hot weather like what we're dealing with, and that can dry things out in a hurry around here. So we're probably going to see a little bit more color on the drought monitor later on this week based on these latest conditions, even though Matt talked about some of those scattered downpours. As we go into 4 o'clock tomorrow, still dry, so not as much action on radar for the afternoon. Plan on watering the next few days. And I mentioned some of that drier air moving in from the east. See that easterly flow? That's actually what's driving the tropical system back off to the south of us. But you'll notice it's not a major drop off, but just enough to where those mornings will have that more crisp feel out there. The evenings we'll see a nice little drop off in those temperatures rather quickly during the evening, but a little bit drier for us as we go through Thursday Friday and by the weekend, the muggy levels will start to increase again, but that's not directly related to this system. Again, this is a look at some of the model data showing that tropical system moving into Texas. There's some areas there may end up with over 7 inches of rainfall as that moves back into Texas. And then you can see another system out in the Atlantic, but not expecting any major impacts. But Juneteenth looks dry, and as summer arrives, temperatures right on track with overnight lows in the 70s. So we'll be right back after this break.